My name is Yuri Kasdorp from Mouse, and we're here for week 8 of the VRS GT3 Sprint Series, and we are at Oulton Park. Tricky small track. It feels like a roller coaster, but it's a lot of fun to drive once you get the hang of it. And it's really one of those classic UK tracks that has a good legacy in motorsports as well. Without further ado, let's get into it and see how we drive around here. Right, here we are, start the lap as usual. Running the full tank for VRS for the Sprint Series. Tires might still be a bit cold. Into the last corner. It's a very roller coaster track, this one. Corners come up to you real quick, and we need to be really close to the grass, old school UK track. Turn one to the outside, slowly make it to the inside, and then can run onto the curb with 2 tires on the right side. Careful on the downhill here. I brake on the bump going downhill, and then shift down to 4th late to reduce rotation a bit. Tiny tap on the brake here to get the car rotated. Brake after the tires are gone on the left side. Then try to brake in a straight line for the chicane. As close as you can to the tires on the left and right side. Brake just after the 100 here. And again, close to the tires as you can. More lifts before you start turning here to get that car rotated. If you lift too late, you won't have the rotation. Get the car over as far to the left as you can after the kink. One downshift. Quickly back on the power over the next crest. And then we brake just after the sign. And then power back early. And that's already a lap around Oulton Park. Let's have a look from the outside cam how this looks like. Right, so let's have a look on the outside cam, have a closer look on the lines we take through the corners. So turn 1, I shift up to 5th just a tiny bit, I run out just in 4th, and I use a point here on the track, this kind of point where the track goes left, as a marker to start turning in. So it's a bit after the sign on the left side from the inside cam. Looks like this. So I go towards this point here, and at this point here where the left side of the white line where the track is a bit wider and then goes back in, I tap the brake, go down 1 gear, so down to 4th gear again, and then let the car go around the corner. So 1 gear down to 4th, and slowly get the car rotated, and by the point where the inside curb is pointy, so as the biggest edge here, you want to have the apex, and on the exit we can run quite wide on the curb, so when you get to the curb here on the inside, you want to be back on full throttle. If you can't be on full throttle here yet, you need to enter a bit slower or have a bit more rotation in the car by coming a bit further from the left side. But that's a good reference point on how you want to take the corner. And then on the exit here, we can run with the right side tires on the curb. On the red and white curb. Not wider than that, but it's quite wide for this track. And we get to turn 2, and turn 2 is really tricky. And there's this very steep downhill section here, where the track suddenly goes downhill, and I'm using that to brake. The tricky part about this is if you then go to 4th gear as well, so downshift 1 gear, if you do it exactly at this point, you get to this small crest and it flattens out a bit again, and all the weight will be on the front end of the car, and it will make the rear really unstable and really unhappy. So what I try to do is I brake where the track goes down, but I don't shift down yet. I delay the downshift quite a lot, and that helps the rear end stay much more planted, and that will allow us to carry a lot more speed through the corner than if we shift down to 4th gear immediately, and the rear will feel very unstable. So how this looks like, go from the outside cam. This one. Brake, right at request, and then wait with the downshift, and only downshift at this point here. And then we try to hit the curb on the inside quite late, and then we should get the rotation going. If we did that braking well and the rear is not too unstable. And on the exit here, we don't want to go too wide. If you go more than half the car over at around this point here, even though 2 tires will be within the white line, you will get an off track. So be careful of not running too wide here. Initially, you can run a bit wider, but around this point here, you need to be with the middle of the car to the left side of this point. Then we got the back straight coming up. And this corner is really tricky. It wants to understeer a lot here. I'm using the curb on the right side here as a reference and brake just before that. But we don't brake to really slow the car down. We use the brake to get that weight on the front end so that the car has rotation. So we tap the brake a small bit just before the overlay goes right here. We tap the brake and then immediately start going a bit on throttle again, and we can go on throttle without having the car understeer because we tap on the brake. What you can also do is just lift, but then you won't be able to go on throttle again as quickly in the corner and lose a tiny bit of time overall with the setup and configuration that I'm running. Might be different if you're running a different car. Lifting might be a bit better. I like to tap the brake and then go back on the throttle immediately. Then we get to the hairpin. We got the tires on the left side here, and I'm using that as a reference. And after I pass the tires, the left side, I start braking. Try to brake as much in the straight line as you can. And on this lap here, I clip the inside a bit, which ruined the traction a bit out of the corner. What you want to do is the same as here, get the rotation, and then have your right side tires on the white line and just on the curb, but you can't clip the grass on the inside here and unsettle the car. And then you should have decent exit out of the corner. And we get to the first chicane, and the first chicane here we want to brake as much in the straight line as we can. That means we want to bring the car over all the way to the right side as much as we can, and then start braking and try to brake from this point here as much in a straight line to this point here. And that means getting very close to the left side tires. When you go over the curb, try to make sure that your car is as straight as possible. So if you need to do a bit of turning like we're doing here, do it before you hit the curb, so that over the curb, if the car bounces a bit, we're going in a straight line and it doesn't upset the car left to right. Try to make sure that when you're braking as well, you set the right hander up so that you're not already in a straight line to this curb, but that you're a bit to the left side so that you can start turning right before we get to the curb here. And that will allow us to get a much better exit. So we don't brake straight for the inside curb, we brake tiny bit to the left of it so we can start turning in tiny bit before the curb, and we can have the car rotated quite a lot already when we go over the curb here. And then back on power. And this left-hander here is also very strict on the off track. If half your car is over the white line, you get an off track here. So even though the right side tires might be within the white line, it's still considered an off track. So we need to make sure that we're not running far over the grass here on the left side. What I like to use as a reference, because it's very hard to use in the middle of the car, I just try to have my left side tires on top of the curb on the left-hand kink here, and not further than that. Then we got the second back straight, and we're running up to the second chicane as well. I'm braking just after the 100. And then all we want to do again is brake in a straight line and set up the next combination of corners. So what we want to do here is make sure that we exit the first corner around the middle of the track, and again not quite at the curb, so that we can start turning before we hit the curb. So I'm starting to turn before we hit the curb on the left side here. If you're not able to turn by then, we're going to go very straight out of the next corner. Tiny tap on the brake here before I start turning or while I'm doing the rotation. And what that does again is it puts the weight on the front end and gets the rotation in the car so that the front end has the weight in it when I'm turning the front. And it immediately points my car to the left side. And it's really important to do it before you do it or right as you do it, because if you do it after you're already turning, the car is just going to understeer more. Tiny bit on throttle here. Make sure to not run too wide again, because we want to be close to that grass on the left side here, entering the right side, because the exit here is important. And again, just as we're turning here, tap the brake a tiny bit, and that will load the front end, get the rotation in the car, and allow us to go on throttle early. So by the time we get to the curb on the inside here, the car, as you can see, is pointing towards the exit already, and we can be back on the power, which helps us get a nice exit here. Again, don't run too wide on the exit here. You can run the 2 tires on this patch of, it's not quite grass. It looks like grass, but this is still grippy until this point here. You can run a bit more over it than I did this lap. If you run a bit wide and understeer a bit, that's fine too. Then it's easy flat here on this bit. What you want to do is set up the next right-hander. And the way we want to set that up is try to open it up as much as possible. And we try to have our car as far to the left-hand side as we can entering it. And going to the right side here on this part of the track will allow us to do that. So this kink here is easy flat, but we want to make sure that the car is as far to the left-hand side as possible when we start braking. I start braking just before the track starts curving here. And you can do the same technique as we did for turn 2, where we delay the downshift a bit, and that will really help the rear stay more settled in this corner, because we're turning and braking at the same time, and that's taking all the weight off the rear, and delaying that downshift with the Lambo really helps with keeping the rear a bit more settled. And we get the double apex here. The first one's not that important to hit. The second one is more important to hit the second one. And again, we want to have that rotation in the car by braking before the corner. And if we have that rotation, nice entry, we can be on throttle in the middle here already. Go over the crest and be flat out. The last corner is really tricky as well. I want to brake just after the sign. Then go down all the way to second gear. And just over the crest. While we go over the crest, we can go flat out again. And it's a flat out run to the finish line. It's a lap around Oulton Park. Alright, so there we go. To drive around Oulton Park. I think it's a brilliant track. A lot of fun to drive once you get the hang of it. Should be quite competitive as well. Qualifying really important here, so really important to nail those laps without getting the off tracks when it matters. I hope everyone learned something, and if you want to see more videos like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and see you all next week.